We do intend, about to say, we are intending to record tonight's meeting, so I hope you're okay with that. My name is Jim Somerville. I'm the project manager with Jacobs, and I'm assisting the city with the Norcross Imagine Our Future Comprehensive Plan and LCI update. This is, I think, probably the first virtual public meeting I think we've ever held like this. We're kind of excited to see how this all works and hopefully give you all a chance to see where we are in the project and how we're progressing. If you would, Ansley, let's go ahead to the next slide. With me tonight, I've also got Ansley Belton, who's with Blue Cypress. She's running the show in the background there, and she'll talk a bit about our public engagement activities. We also have Jonathan Corona and Jeff War, who are with Jacobs, and they're going to also be presenting some background information on sort of the planning context and the information that we've gathered to date. So they're all important members of our team. Of course, we also have city staff on the call as well. So if any questions come up, I'm sure they can also help address them if needed. But tonight, indeed, hopefully we'll have a very short presentation. Like I said, my intention is just give an overview. I got the easy job. Then Anthony's going to talk about what we've heard today, and then we'll turn over to Jonathan and Jeff, who will talk about the planning context. And finally, we'll have actually a survey demo here. And we really hope to hear from you all to get your opinions on some of the projects that we've identified so far in the planning process. So with that, we'll actually go to one of our first polling questions here, which I think, Ansley, you're going to pop up on the screen with our poll. But we want to find a little bit about yourself so we have a good understanding of it. Here we go. Here's the poll question. If you would just take a few moments and go ahead and answer those questions, we'll have a better understanding of who is on the call.
All right, we've seen about 7 responses so far. Let's give it a few more minutes, a few more seconds, and I'll close it. All right. Go ahead and close the polls. It looks like 100% of the participants tonight live in Norcross. So thank you for sharing that.
All right, so project overview. Let me give you a quick understanding of where we are in the process and what we're doing as part of this effort. So if we go to the next slide, Anthony. All right, so you may be wondering what exactly are we doing? And for those of you who've seen these slides before, I apologize. But I think it's always important to kind of step back and remember, what are we doing, and why are we doing it? We're updating the city's comprehensive plan, which indeed defines the long-term vision for the community. It is a 20-year horizon, planning horizon, though we focus really on the implementation for the next 5 years. It aligns with the city budget and what you're all doing. But it's intended to be a policy guide that directs both capital investment decisions as well as policy decisions. You know, those actions that the city council takes in terms of rezoning in particular, land use decisions, and how the land is being used. Part of this effort is also looking at your town center livable centers initiative. This is actually the second update, I think, of the LCI that really focuses on the center part of the city. Now, if you look at that graphic we have over there, the city limits are in orange, kind of looks like a big boot. And the LCI is that blue highlight area. It's actually highlighting all the parcels that are in the Livable Centers Initiative. Now, the Livable Centers Initiative is intended to encourage the co-location of sort of live, work, play environments, housing and employment in a small area, in an attempt to really minimize, if possible, the number of traffic and daily trips that we take outside the area. It's intended to make it really a true town center. This is all being funded by the Atlanta Regional Commission for the LCI, and if we have a plan that we can demonstrate where the city has a good record of implementation. It makes sense. It makes the city eligible to receive funding. And the comp plan is the same way. The comp plan, if you have an approved comp plan from Georgia Department of Community Affairs, it allows you to be, or gives you the status of qualified local government, which means that you qualify for state grants and that sort of thing. So there's really some good practical monetary reasons why we do both of these efforts. Now, this LCI is a little different in this implementation focused LCI, and we'll talk about that. Actually comes up here if you go to the next slide, honestly. Yeah, see, part of the reason why we're doing both these projects together is that the goals and everything between the two really kind of align very nicely. We're validating the community's future vision. We're trying to incorporate and update all the plans and policies that have happened, because last time the comp plan was done 5 years ago, and a lot's happened, including COVID. A lot of our vision ideas of what makes Norcross what it is probably have, some things have happened for sure that we need to take into consideration. And of course, we want to really explore very closely, like I said, how to implement that vision. We want to make sure we're on the right path, and we want to look at ways to implement that. Now, the LCI is focusing on primarily the traffic operations that are in the area. You can go on the next slide. It's fine, Ansley. Yeah, it's focusing on the traffic operations analysis of the area and also EV implementation. And this is part of our agreement with ARC. Like I say, they wanted us to look at both those areas of focus, but it all, like I say, comes together really in terms of what's the overall vision for the city and how can we make Norcross a fun, exciting place for people to invest their money, to play, to live, whatever it takes to make everything work. Where the two efforts really kind of overlap, you see here is the public engagement, and I could say also the implementation. The reason you see the LCI bubble a little larger than the comp plan is actually it has a larger budget. Like I say, a good portion of this is being funded by the Atlanta Regional Commission. So the city's done a good job of leveraging its funds. All right, here are the components. You can go on, that's fine. The components of the comprehensive plan are really all around what we call plan elements. We look at the land use, like I mentioned, so it impacts the rezoning decisions that the Planning Commission and City Council make. We look at economic development, we look at transportation, housing, a whole variety of everything, including everything kind of affects quality of life. But the three major components that we look at are the vision and goals, the needs and opportunities, and the community work program. The vision and goals is, again, looking at your vision statement and your future development map. Your needs and opportunities are kind of issues that communities identify they need to address, and the community work plan truly is the implementation to meet those needs and opportunities. Let's go on to the next. All right, so where are we on the process? We're a little over halfway, really, in implementing this. We're in the implementation strategy. We've spent, or I should say, we kicked this off back in February, and we spent a good bit of time just collecting information, making sure we had all the latest plans that need to be incorporated. We worked with community on trying to update or validate the vision that was there. And we're now working hard on trying to identify what are the implementation steps they're going forward. And one thing we've learned, Norcross is not short of plans. You all have identified a number of projects over the years that are there. Really, a lot of what we realize we're trying to do is not so much create new projects, but is indeed to take a really hard, practical look at the projects you all have identified and find out what should be the priority for the community. What can you actually implement in the next 5 years? So it's not so much of an adding on as a paring down and just really taking a hard look at where you are. So that's where we are right now. So, our next meeting coming up, we'll have an open house coming up here in October, and we'll have a steering committee coming up around the same time. We'll be talking about the community work program and implementation strategy, and the input we receive tonight from you all really is going to help inform that. It won't be the only thing that informs it, but it certainly will have a very major role in the, what we come up with as our community work program for the future. And our goal is to have this all adopted by the end of February. That's actually a hard deadline that DCA has put in place for the comp plan. For the LCI, we actually have a little more time if need be, but because the two efforts are being integrated, we really like to wrap up both projects at the same time. So with that, I'll turn it over to Anthony to talk about what we've heard to date.
Thanks, Jim. Right. So as Jim showed with our project schedule, we've been working on this joint update for the comp plan and LCI since February. And we've been trying to get out into the community for various events shown here. And we've been trying to hear from different segments of the Norcross population. We also added this virtual meeting tonight to continue to get the word out and hear from more folks. So we're recording this meeting, as you know, and we're planning to share the video online and continue promoting it. So please tell your neighbors that this video will be available on our website, and there will be surveys available as well. So there's more ways for folks to continue being engaged. But throughout our process so far, we've been collecting input on transportation priorities and just general priorities for future growth and development. Transportation related desires, what's kind of risen to the top is the need for more connectivity between downtown and other parts of the city. We've heard a lot about a desire for walking and biking paths, and also for more frequent bus service. A parking deck in the town center has also been something a lot of folks have echoed. And then safety improvements have been coming up, especially at some of your intersections, such as those that have three-way stops. Some other types of desires we've heard a lot about Jimmy Carter Boulevard, maybe some effort there to try to beautify the area and add some more gateway signage. We've heard about needs for a new grocery store. Norcross community members love their parks, so that's always something we hear. And then more security and more lighting in some areas has been raised as well. We've been trying to do some fun, creative types of engagement. So the picture shown here is from our last event at Summer Hour Middle School, where we allowed children and families to draw their visions for the future. So some of you may have participated in our first survey that was open back in April through July. We ended up having 409 total participants, and through our English and Spanish versions, you'll see a discrepancy in how many folks we heard from. I do want to make a plug that we are continuing to try to get the word out to the Spanish-speaking population in Norcross. We'll have another survey that's launching today, and we're again posting that in Spanish. And we're going to be having a roundtable discussion with Spanish-speaking members of the population as well. So we've been trying to get folks to sign up. We've got several so far, and we could use help with getting the word out. So I'll drop a link in the chat here in a moment with a sign-up form if anybody wants to help us get the word out. But from that first survey, I want to go over some of the key points we heard. Again, with transportation, some of this might be repetitive with what I mentioned earlier. We heard a lot about congestion, traffic, pedestrian crossings over Buford Highway, over the railroad. You'll hear more about that a little later on as well. The lack of parking also came up again and again. We did ask, though, would residents be supportive of paid parking in the town center? And the majority of folks said no, although about 27% said maybe. We asked some questions about electric vehicles. That's one of the things we're studying in this LCI update. There are some barriers to driving electric vehicles. So we asked folks about what they see are the biggest barriers, and we heard it's very expensive, and then the lack of charging stations in Norcross. So that's something we're seeking to address. There's a lot of federal funding available right now. So we collected public input on where is the need for more charging stations. And we also said, are you supportive of the city going after this federal funding? And there was a resounding yes to that. In terms of future growth and development, we asked, what types of land uses and types of community centers and services are you interested in seeing? The top answer was more unique shops and restaurants, more outdoor gathering spaces, again, more parking. We asked about different types of housing. And this is something we're really going to dig into more through our next survey, is really thinking about what's the character and look and feel of our communities all across the city. So we'll share more about that as we go through this meeting today. So I just wanted to end on one more slide here about what we heard in the first survey. We had a lot of people bring up that more dining options in the town center would be great, more parking, a preference for single family homes across the city was heard, but we also did get some variation in responses regarding density in the town center. People do see the town center generally as an area where it would be okay to invest in higher density or mixed use development. And again, I just want to plug that we do have a feedback survey that we're going to be demoing here a little later on in this meeting. And then our final public outreach event is going to be October 19th, our public open house. And that one will be at the Cultural Arts and Community Center. So we hope you can join us for that. I'll pass it on to Jonathan.
Thank you, Ansley, and good evening, everybody. If you can just go to the next slide, Ansley. Ansley just mentioned the demonstration that she'll be giving for the surveys that we prepared for you and for the broader community. So we thought it would be a good idea to provide a little bit more context around some of the previous planning efforts and recent planning efforts that may have an impact on the feedback that you provide. Starting with the comprehensive plan's vision, this vision comes in two parts. And we think this is really important to understand because this really carries along throughout the entire document. When you read through the previous comprehensive plan, you'll know everything that is in there refers back to the vision statement. And this vision statement is an aspirational statement that covers everything from, can we go back? This covers a 20-year planning horizon and just provides the city with some guidance on what they want to see over the next 20 years. So the statement currently reads, Norcross will be a dynamic and welcoming community in which generations of diverse citizens can engage, create, contribute, and flourish. So you notice that it is a pretty broad statement, but as we create the goals and the policies as a part of this plan with you all, we want to take this into consideration all along the way. And this will help guide elected officials and city staff in the decisions they make as well. The second part of that vision is the character areas, and these are more location specific. And you can pop to that next slide, Ansley. Character areas, as you can see in that map, in that screenshot in the previous slide, are sub areas. They are smaller, distinct neighborhoods and communities within the city itself, and each of them has similar land uses, building types, and transportation networks. So they're divided up not how they are grouped today, but how the city and the community wants to see them in the future. So they are grouped how they're expected to grow or change, and that's something that you'll see in the survey we want to get feedback on today. Ultimately, this character area map will guide city council and decision makers on future rezoning. So if a developer or somebody comes in the future wanting to put in apartments or a grocery store or a new single family residential development, this map is going to help signal whether those developments are appropriate in the areas that those applicants are coming to ask about. So this next slide, we have a map, just a quick preview of the character area map. There are currently 13 character areas. throughout the city, and each of them are distinct in their own way. I'll just point out a couple. On number 7 is the town center, obviously where the downtown is, and as you can see, it goes south of Buford Highway. So when you think about it right now, south, anything south or east of Buford Highway doesn't necessarily reflect what is in the downtown, but this map signals that maybe that area should look a little more like downtown. Maybe, maybe that area could be a little more integrated when it comes to future development. There are other areas like character area 12, the South Norcross neighborhoods, which is a grouping of subdivisions and single family neighborhoods, some duplex and townhouse, that is more conducive to just to residential development and not so much that commercial type development. But what else should be there? The question here is, should there be more types of uses that support neighborhood development, such as corner stores and things like that? So those are the questions that we have in the survey. You'll kind of see, we just want to confirm if the previously adopted policies for each of these character areas still ring true today. So on our next slide, something else we want to take into consideration when revising these character areas are areas that have changed. This map, even though you probably can't read it well on your end, really what the key takeaways here from this map are that a lot of the change that has happened in recent years has been closer to the town center. When you see the Brunswick multifamily development, as well as the county library that has popped up along Buford Highway close to Lindenwell Park. A lot of this is clustered around the town center, and that's not uncommon. A lot of, this type of development catalyzes more development, and that just tends to happen. You'll see other development that is under construction now on the edges of the city. For example, one is the Gateway Norcross at the corner of Peachtree Industrial Boulevard and Jimmy Carter Boulevard, something you may have seen pop up behind the racetrack gas station. This is an example of gateway development, that might signal to people that they're driving into the city of Norcross. This is the first. It is a little taller. It kind of shows that you've arrived. This is where we live. This represents Norcross. So you may disagree with that, but that's what we also want to cover in the survey. What types of gateway developments and gateway monuments and things do you want to see in the community? So in our next slide, we have, I also wanted to cover a couple of previous planning efforts, and one of them is the Buford Highway Master Plan. This was adopted in 2018 by the city, and it is a plan for incremental revitalization across the Buford Highway corridor. So as you can see on the map here, what was done in this previous plan were 3 nodes along Buford Highway were identified to receive new development and redevelopment. And these 3 nodes are at Jimmy Carter and Buford Highway. Another one is a downtown node. And the other is the Beaver Ruin node, as you can see here on the map. We could go back a slide, Ansley. So in the surveys, you'll also see, we just want to confirm the vision that was established in the Buford Highway Master Plan before we incorporate that into the LCI or the comprehensive plan. So these will have a major impact on those character areas as well. In our next slide. Now, as Jim mentioned earlier, the previous comprehensive plan, the previous LCI was adopted in 2012. So we're dealing with a similar study area here, but it's expanded to the south. And a lot of the projects that were adopted as a part of that plan, which were primarily transportation related projects, have been incorporated. They've been done by the city, and there's a lot to be proud of as a community when it comes to what has been done as a result of the previous LCI plan. But now that that's being updated, there are some projects that weren't done that we want to look into pulling forward into this plan. So we can think about other projects that we want to potentially recommend, or things that the city and its residents think that could be beneficial to the community. So these again revolve a lot around transportation needs. So I'm going to hand it off to Jeff War, and he's going to talk a little bit about those transportation projects.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
So yeah, as Jonathan mentioned, there are still a number of projects remaining in the 2012 LCI list. And you can really rank these into sort of 3 different buckets. We can have a bucket of bike projects, and those could range anything from bike lanes to sharrows. We also have remaining pedestrian and trail projects, and those can be items like crosswalk enhancements or trail extensions or sidewalk gap projects. And finally, we have a smaller bucket of projects that are not bike or ped related. And those are an extension of Wingo Street, a roundabout at Norcross Tucker Road and South Peachtree Street, several gateway signage locations, and some parallel parking next to the park. So when we're going to be looking at these, we're definitely going to be looking for feedback. But in order to come up with some quantifiable sort of measures for these quality of life issues, we are going to be doing some additional analyses on these to help prioritize and rank them. For the bike projects, we're going to be looking at things like cost and bike crash histories of reported crashes. We have measures that we can implement for level of traffic stress, depending on the speed and volume of traffic and the distance of the crossings that the bikes have to make. Similarly, for the pedestrian and trail projects, we can look at those costs and crash histories. We also have information on the level of pedestrian activity along all of these streets, similar level of traffic stress scoring, and of course distances to schools and other public facilities, especially considering those Safe Route to School program. So each of these things can be sort of quantified and helped us to use to prioritize these projects. But how much weight goes to each of these categories is also something that we're going to be looking for moving forward. And I think that's where we're going to be looking for some feedback from the public. Also, just to hear things that are anecdotal that may not be as quantifiable. So, and I think Ansley's going to talk about a little bit more about how we're going to be getting that feedback.
All right, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, I'm going to be giving you a demo on these surveys that have just come out today. We have 2 types of surveys that are available. One is actually an interactive map. It looks like what's showing on the slide here, but I'm actually going to exit PowerPoint and show you how to get to that and how to navigate within the page. So on our website, imagineourfuture.org, you'll see along the top menu bar now, there's a new page called Provide Feedback. And we've laid out the steps of how to go through our 2 surveys, and then there's an additional feedback form just for general comments that don't fit within the other 2 surveys. Tomorrow, after the recording from this meeting processes, we're also going to have the video posted on this page. So I'll go through the map survey first, as that was what Jeff was just talking about. And this one might be a little more complex, but once I show you, hopefully it'll make sense to everyone. So once you click you can click on the map on the website or click this button, Interactive Map Survey. It'll take you to this page where a splash message shows up to kind of give you an orientation of what you're looking at. As Jeff mentioned, we're showing projects from the last LCI project list, as well as a few new recommendations that have been developed through our planning process so far. And the instructions are pretty simple. We're just asking for folks to look at the proposed projects and add comments on whether they support or oppose the improvements, and if they have any other suggestions, questions, or general comments about these projects. Now, I know there's a lot of projects on the map here. You don't have to give feedback on them all. You can, but it's up to you. The way this is built is you can click on an individual project, and then the description of the project comes up on your right-hand side of the screen. You can read the description, and then the small orange comment box, you click there, and then you can fill out your information in your comment. Then the way this works is your name and email, that comes to us just for our records, but those will not be publicly displayed on the site, but your comments will be. That way other community members can kind of be a part of the conversation and see what other folks are saying about projects. So it's an interactive tool. You can also click just on the list rather than clicking on the lines on the map and read about the different projects that are happening. So that is that on how to run this tool. And again, if you want to pull up the instructions that appear when you first open the page, you click this question mark at the top, and that brings back the instructions. This is all available in English and Spanish. So hopefully we'll get a lot of participation throughout this next month. And then the next survey I want to give you some overview information about is our comprehensive plan survey. This one is more of a traditional survey that you've probably taken many surveys in your lifetime out of SurveyMonkey, so this is nothing new here. But I did want to just show you some interesting features within this survey you may not have known. So what we're looking at are the character areas that Jonathan introduced earlier in this meeting. And we're trying to confirm and validate what is the vision for each of the areas, as well as get ideas from you about where policy changes might be needed, or maybe other action items might be needed to address area-specific needs. So as you go through this survey, you can read about the general vision of the character area 1, for instance. You can also click on this link and it will pull up a page from the last comprehensive plan that provides just a little bit more information about what the current policies and implementation measures are for achieving the vision. And we're trying to get your feedback on all of this. So basically, through this survey, we're trying to validate the vision and then hear from you on other needs. So we'll have questions about all of the character areas. I'm going to go breeze through this because I want to point out a few other things here. There's also a few places where we've already identified the need for some boundary changes from how the map was originally drafted back in the 2040 comprehensive planning process. So we describe what these changes are, and then we ask for your opinion on whether the boundaries should change. So there's 4 examples like that we're hoping to get your feedback on. And then finally, Jonathan also went over that there's the 3 Beaufort Highway nodes that were identified in the Beaufort Highway Master Plan. So we're getting some feedback today to think about what are the future development goals and policies in these areas. So that's what you'll see when you go through the SurveyMonkey. And again, there's just a space for general feedback on future growth and development. So share all of your ideas here with us, and we're excited to incorporate your feedback.
And I see people on this call that I know people. So it would be really helpful if you were able to spread the word about these surveys. Whether you're sharing with friends that live in Norcross on Facebook, or you're just in your neighborhood. You can copy and paste the instructions for these from the website. It'd be really helpful to get as much feedback as we possibly could for these.
Great. We'll go back into our PowerPoint, but we're about done. We may end early tonight, folks. We just finally wanted to conclude with another reminder that the open house is October 19th. So we hope you mark your calendars and plan to join us for that. This will be the final feedback opportunity before we have the final plan drafted. With that, I'll let anyone is welcome to come off mute if you have questions, or you can put questions in the chat. We'll stick around and have a discussion.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Tixie Fowler, and I am the chairman of Norcross's Parks, Green Spaces, and Trails Commission. And we are in the process, we just got started, and we are doing an update to the parks, excuse me, the existing parks master plan. But in that process, we are adding a whole new overlay of green infrastructure development and trails, which has not been considered in the past plan. And I'm just wondering if there's any opportunities to collaborate, because transportation, whether it's foot trails or bikes, is part of what we are focused on. And I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity for us to share or to be part of this as you move forward, so that we don't have all these silo plans in the city, but we have some that actually work together. Just thinking what your thoughts. I wouldn't even know how to do that, so I'm asking what your thoughts are.
Jonathan, do you want to take that?
How far along is the process on that effort?
We literally, I would say, got rolling within the last month. We've had one what we call stakeholders meeting, which was basically the commission board, and we had people from the tree board and some city staff people, and was really working with the consultant to just give our feedback. And then we're meeting again, I believe, on September 14th to hear what they did with that feedback and how they're working with it. And again, our goal isn't so much to just update the existing parks plan, but to take out of it what makes sense and to create a new, more robust and appropriate plan. And I say appropriate because we didn't feel, as a group, we didn't feel that the last one really did represent a lot of people in our community. There wasn't a lot of, we had 68 respondents, and this was done in 2016, I think. So, this is a whole new group, whole new community now. So what we're saying is we're going to begin doing a lot of the outreach that you guys are talking about, but we have not done it yet. We are going on September 16th is going to be our first public outreach, and that's going to be at the Hispanic Heritage event that the city is hosting at Summer Middle School. But that's, like I said, that's gonna be our first outreach. So early on.
Yeah, I think this plan is going to wrap up well before that effort's done. So I want to say I agree with you. They shouldn't be done in a silo. However, I think it would be prudent for that planning process to carry on, and any feedback that's done, any projects that come out of that plan, they can be put in this down the road. But this plan just may get adopted without those projects, if that makes sense.
Kind of. Okay.
I'd hate for to urge you to rush getting feedback or getting community input, but I think that's probably the best route. The timeline just didn't line up very well, did it?
Yeah, the problem is we're on a strict schedule from Georgia Department of Community Affairs, so the city really has to adopt this by the end of February. So we have to get the draft really done kind of before the holidays, so that DCA and ARC, that's the Atlanta Regional Commission, and Georgia Department of Community Affairs, have time to review what was done and make sure that we checked all the boxes, that's required of a local plan. So given that, we have to kind of move forward, make sure we got everything done. But I'm sure the staff and the city was very interested in incorporating, making sure those are aligned. I mean, that's kind of one of the tasks that they'll have, I think, for the next update going forward. And I imagine, though, the plans and stuff that we've heard from the previous comp plan and all that, they're probably fairly in line. But I mean, I'm real curious to see what input you do get. I'm very curious to see how they align with the previous plans that were there. Yeah, I don't know if anyone from the city wants to make any comments on that, but I'm sure the goal is to try to make sure these plans are in sync as much as we can.
Is there any early information that you have already or that could be shared maybe?
I'm whatever we have that we've got we could share, we will share. Let me put it that way. So maybe we can, I think, Jim, I've got your contact information, but maybe we can figure it out maybe through William. Anyway, if we can connect, I would be more than happy to put you in touch, especially with the consultant who's doing this with us, because he may have some information I'm not aware of yet, or I haven't processed yet. Because he's been doing a lot of work, and I know we're studying the comp plan and the LCI and the Beaver Highway, all those plans were brought into our discussion. And I guess another way too is we could encourage people that we're working with to get into your survey. So there you go.
True.
Who is that consultant you're working with?
It's Perez Design and Planning, and then they brought in Biohabitats is going to be our main. And then the other one, and I cannot remember the name of the firm, it's actually a firm that helps with grant writing, and that's what I was really interested in seeing, with the list of grant opportunities that we as a city qualify through from being the comp plan, because there might be some things we could actively go after, So, okay, we'll hook up on that. One more question. When you're doing character areas, I heard here over the years, always heard development. Has anything ever been considered in a character area about preserving a green space or utilizing any of our existing city land, saying that we want to keep X amount percentage of green space in this area? Or is that just not traditionally part of a character area definition?
I don't remember ever seeing like a goal or a particular percentage that's been stated before. I've seen that typically in Parks and Rec master plans. I've seen that there are national standards that are recommended guidelines about what percentage of green space you should have and all that. But I haven't seen that in a comp plan per se, other than maybe just reiterating what the other plan said. Given that, I don't recall seeing that in the Norcross plan.
Could it be introduced into that?
As a goal, sure. I don't see any problem with that, as long as the community's on board with that. And but the whole idea for us is to reflect the vision of the community. And if that's the goal of the community, that's certainly something that can be incorporated. Because
that's one of the things that came up recently, was there is some property that is privately owned. And it's in it's a forested area, and it's in a very high density part of our town. And it's one of the last remaining fragments that we have of this green space. And so I was trying to get it not developed, because they were coming for rezoning. And there was nothing that I could find, or even that was cited to me publicly by council, that said in the comp plan, yes, we need to keep we need to keep a percentage of land, whether it's turned into a park. And that's what I think we're hearing from your report. You're hearing people want more parks. Well, if we keep building on all our, land, we can't get the parks. So if to me, it's kind of, well, then if everybody wants parks, then why aren't we putting language into our comp plan that says, I wouldn't know how to do that, but says, you need to keep some of these green spaces, and that needs to be a priority, and that needs to be something that you could potentially spend, X number of money on and do that. But we don't have that I'm aware of in the comp plan, and so it's hard to go up there and fight for that, And yet if that goes, we've got basically a city cement in that section of town. And it's like, no, that's not what we're talking about here. We want a park.
Hi, this is Connie Weathers. I'm a former chairman of the Sustainable Norcross Commission. We worked with the city to become platinum certified by the Atlanta Regional Commission as a green community. One of the goals in that plan that we did achieve was to have a park or green space open to the public within a half a mile of all residents. That does not mean commercial areas, but within a half a mile of all residential areas. There are two other criteria that can be used. One of them is a % of green space to overall space, and I've forgotten what the other one is, but the one that we felt we could most likely achieve was within a half a mile of residents. So that should be a goal that the city has had for quite a number of years. I know there's been a lot of turnover, and a lot of these plans get put on a shelf and people forget the goals that previous council members have agreed to achieve. So I would say, yes, there is a goal that the city has had, but whether anybody knows it and whether anybody is working to achieve it, I don't know. I would like for this plan to take that into account, as well as for the bike and walk plans. The ARC Green Communities program recommends having certification for bike-friendly community and walk-friendly community. When our team of volunteers took the survey a number of years ago with the input of city staff, it was discovered that we were so far away from achieving either of those that people threw up their hands in distress and said, oh, we can't do anything. But that is not a proper way to move forward. Even if you only do one or two of the things that are required to become certified as bike or walk friendly, you're at least making progress in the right direction. So I would encourage you to take those two survey certification steps into account as the projects are being considered for walk and bike friendly projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, there's a comment in the chat about the definition of Norcross, the town center terminology, if you want to respond to that.
What, let me see, I have to look at the chat here.
And I can read it to you if you're having a hard time finding it. Can you please let me know if downtown Norcross considered town center in your discussion /slides?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Is this referring to a particular development or the terminology of downtown? I'm not sure. Could someone elaborate on the question? Or maybe Jonathan, do you have a clue?
I think Leslie's referring to that the town center character area does include downtown Norcross.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, so like I said, we did highlight on the character map the town center, and that does include the downtown area, if that's your question. I hope we answer that correctly.
I've got
Anything
a question.
else? Oh yeah, go ahead, Robert. Yeah.
Hey, a short question. It's kind of along the lines of Tixie's question about collaboration. We talked a while back, Jim, about PDR zoning and some tweaking that I thought needed to be done. But in that process, I guess over the last year or so, there's probably 5 or 6 custom single family builders in Norcross, and we've all gotten together and have been having meetings discussing things. We've kind of got a collaboration, and we wanted to know if there was a way for us to have some input as a builder group into the comprehensive plan on some of the things that these other builders and myself kind of wanted to express our opinions and collaborate and be in that as well. That's one question. Is there an opportunity for us to do that as a building group? If I can assemble, I know I've got probably 8 or 9 guys right now that expressed interest and kind of wanting to voice their opinion of, since we're
Sort of
such
a focus group meeting where we could just
yeah,
kind of
like
get
a focus group meeting, just talking about builder issues and zoning issues and things that would be important to us. And I'm speaking primarily for single family kind of issues. Some of the issues that I think are out there is there's just been sort of an influx of a lot of townhomes and higher density stuff. And we're kind of pushing for things that would make it more friendly to do more single family type of things. But a more specific thing that y'all talked about in this presentation was the east side of the town, the east side of town center character area 7, but the extension of Wingo Street that's been talked about for a long time. I'm involved and have been hired by a couple other developers. We've got right now probably over 10 acres and more coming on that side of town. And we'd like to talk more about some kind of collaboration with the city to incorporate parallel parking as we go through those plans, work out some issues that the elementary school over there has with their carpool lanes and stuff. And the Wingo Street, the land has been assembled now, almost all of it necessary to do some type of Wingo Street extension if that was really on the table. But that's a key part and then one of the gateways into the town center that we just want to be able to have an open dialogue with the city. And we'll be talking with Antonio, I'm sure, a lot. But as far as the comprehensive plan, we just want to be in line, which will make it a little easier for the city to kind of work with us and in a more collaborative way than just us bringing something and putting it on the table and say, what you think? We'd rather be involved early on and kind of have them part of the process. So getting back, really, my question is it possible for us to have some like a focus group?
like a focus group meeting? Our intention is to be transparent.
And we can come to y'all, or we can meet anywhere. But we can do a Zoom meeting if you want to. But
I'm open to talking with you all. I think it's important we are being transparent in all this. We're certainly not doing all this behind, in some back rooms. So again, it's a matter too of what's applicable to the comp plan, what's applicable to the UDO. I'm sure your issues are probably dealing with more than just the comp plan. It's dealing with several things. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I'd be glad to talk with you all. That's no problem.
Yeah, we can, from your standpoint, we just want to talk about the comp plan issues.
Sure.
And maybe the character areas and get a little, just review some of the stuff that's coming down the road within the next 2 or 3 years, probably. So it's pretty important issues.
Oh yeah, it's very important to know about those things from our perspective too. I don't know if anyone from the city wants to comment at all, but I'm open to listening, certainly.
Yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't able to come on earlier. Tixie, I heard your comments, and we're open to getting all feedback that we can within the time frame that we're given. So happy to. Robert.
Okay. So what do I just call you or send you an email and we'll work out schedules or something?
Sure. Yeah, I think you've got my contact information, right?
Yeah.
Robert, the city manager and I, we're willing to meet with you and the other developers in regards to what you just discussed with us here. So if you want to set up something with me and Eric Johnson, we're more than happy to meet with you.
Oh yeah, I mean, we got issues, not issues, but just things we want to talk about with you being the new development director, and just open the channels for you to communicate to us so that you kind of know what we're doing instead of being cause and effect, that we're actually collaborating with the city to kind of help things run more smoothly. Because we know that the staffing with you and Louisa leaving, that it's kind of up in the air now about how do we get things done and that kind of stuff. Those are side issues not related to comp plans issues, but yeah, I mean, we're hoping as a group of builders that we're not really competitors with each other. We're kind of collaborators trying to, we're talking about issues like price point and products and quality and trying to keep everything consistent. There's one other dynamic that I don't think anybody's ever mentioned that from a builder's perspective, and that is that in the last 2 years since COVID, and it kind of, I don't know if the cause and effect, but Norcross has had a batch of houses now that have reached $1 million and over $1 million. And I see that, and we're still a bargain compared to Alpharetta and Brookhaven, Shamley. We're still cheaper than everybody else. But my point is that once you kind of cap that point, the school system dynamic is going to change, because historically for the last 20 years I've been developing there, everybody, when they look at Norcross, they pretty much consider the public school systems, and they've never put a big push on the fact that you got Westland and Greater Atlanta 5 minutes from there. And once you kind of get into that higher price point, there's going to be an influx of type buyers that Norcross has never seen, that because of the products that are coming online in that price point. So that may affect, things that with the school systems and stuff too. But again, that's not probably a comp issue as much. But anyway,
shoot me some dates and times you guys are wanting to
okay
there and meet with me and the city manager, and
Yeah.
we'll try to accommodate you guys.
Sure, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? Amanda, how are we doing on time? We're doing
It's like
good.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, yeah, we're getting tight here.
I have one more question. Just, I don't even know if this
Sure.
is a thing, but if it is, I swear I heard one point somewhere that there was such a thing as you could do a zoning overlay that would restrict or prohibit homeowners from cutting down the trees in their backyard. And the example I'm thinking of there again is Robert reminds me, there's one of the custom home builders done a great job of putting homes in such a way that preserved the backyard being forested down to an existing trail. And yet we're all worried because if somebody comes in and says, I hate trees, and cuts them all down, there's just nothing we can do. And we lose a lot of the benefit and value of that existing trail. And I swear I heard something but maybe I'm hallucinating. Is there kind of an overlay or zoning you can do?
Well, it's not an overlay per se, but it is part of the tree preservation ordinance, or the landscape ordinance, and it is in your UDO.
Yeah.
So the question is maybe as a tactical item, we just need to sit down and look closely at that document and see what kind of provisions it has with regard to what you're trying to do. But it sounds like your concern is the cutting down instead of, I'm sure specimen trees in particular, right? Large trees, but just clear
In
cutting.
particular, but this one, it's on Rusty Brundage, the whole entire section. If they came in and started cutting their own trees down, we'd lose. But the city's invested in calling it a trail back there.
Yeah. Again, it's not necessarily a comp plan issue, it's more of a UDO issue, but if it's a concern or part of the vision, certainly the goal of preservation of tree coverage would be a comp plan goal that should be cited. It probably already is there. I'd have to look. But yeah, the details are really in the UDO. That's where you need to look and see if you got provisions there. Yeah, that goes again back to Mr. Harris. So we'll have to look at that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got 1 minute left. We want to emphasize, we have an open house coming up October 19th. We will be meeting with the steering committee coming up. I know we have a couple of focus groups actually they're going on and stuff. So we know that our doors are still open. We're still looking for public input. That's kind of the purpose of tonight's meeting, was to let you all see that survey that's out there. Please take it. Please tell your friends about it. The more input we get, the better, and the more reflective it will be of the vision of the community. And that's really our goal. We're really hoping that we can capture, what you as a community want to be like as you develop in the future. So unless that's it, that's really all I've got. I just want to thank you all for participating tonight, and we look forward to hearing from you all in the future. Thank you.